Life in America before cell phones. There was a time, not so long ago, when leaving your house meant disappearing. Not vanishing in any sinister way, but simply stepping outside the reach of the only machine that could summon you back. The telephone hung on the kitchen wall or sat on a table in the hallway, tethered by a coiled cord that stretched only so far. When you walked out the door, you became a ghost to everyone you knew. Imagine that for a moment. You're 17 years old, and you've just left for the movies with friends. Your mother has no way to reach you. She doesn't know if you've arrived safely. She doesn't know when you'll be home. Not exactly, because you said around 11, and that's all either of you have. There's a kind of faith in that uncertainty, a trust that you'll return, that the world will hold you gently enough until you do. She goes about her evening. You go about yours. The invisible thread between you remains unbroken, even though it can't be pulled tight. This was the texture of life before the cell phone. Life moved in larger blocks of time, in longer stretches of silence. You made plans days in advance because you couldn't simply text, "running late," or "change of plans. Let's meet at 7 instead of 6. If you said you'd meet someone at the fountain at 3 o'clock on Saturday, you showed up at the fountain at 3 o'clock on Saturday. If they didn't appear, you waited. 15 minutes? 20? 30, if you really cared. And if they never came, you went home wondering what happened, and you wouldn't know until you called them later if their line wasn't busy. The busy signal. That sharp, repeating beep that told you someone else was living their life in that moment, occupying the single channel into their home. You'd hang up and wait. Try again in 10 minutes. Try again in 20. Sometimes you'd try for an hour, dialing the same 7 digits over and over, until finally, mercifully, it rang. When the phone did ring in your house, it rang for everyone. The sound cut through dinner conversations, interrupted homework, pulled people up from the basement or down from the second floor. Someone would answer, and if it was for you, they'd call your name, and you'd take the receiver from their hand, still warm. Privacy was negotiated, not assumed. You'd stretch that coiled cord as far as it would go, around corners, into closets, until you were whispering into the mouthpiece with your back against the wall. Your family learned not to listen, mostly. But they were always there, just on the other side of that thin boundary. Teenage phone calls happened late at night, after parents had gone to bed, when the house was dark and quiet. You'd lie on your bedroom floor, with the phone pressed to your ear, speaking in low voices about nothing and everything, and the night felt enormous and private and yours. Sometimes you'd fall asleep like that, the phone still cradled against your cheek, the dial tone humming in your dreams. In the morning, someone would discover the phone off the hook and sigh, but they wouldn't be angry. They understood. Talking was what you did. If you needed to reach someone while you were out in the world, you looked for a payphone. They stood on street corners, outside gas stations, in the lobbies of shopping malls. Metal boxes with folding doors that never quite closed, the receiver often sticky or smelling faintly of someone else's cologne. You'd fish a quarter from your pocket, drop it into the slot, and listen to it tumble down through the machine's metal throat. The dial tone was permission. You could call anyone, anywhere, as long as you had their number memorized or written on a scrap of paper in your wallet. Calling collect was a small act of rebellion, or desperation, or love. You'd dial 0 and tell the operator you wanted to make a collect call. And when your mom or dad or friend answered, the operator would ask if they'd accept the charges. You have a collect call from, and then you'd say your name, or not your name, but a message compressed into the 3 seconds they gave you. You have a collect call from Mom pick me up from the mall. And she declined the charges and come get you, because she understood the code. At school, there was one payphone in the hallway, and there was always a line. You'd wait your turn, watching the person ahead of you cup their hand around the receiver, trying to carve out some small pocket of privacy in the middle of all that noise. When it was finally your turn, you'd call home to ask if you could go to a friend's house after school, or to let someone know you'd be late, or sometimes just to hear a familiar voice in the middle of a hard day. Phone books were thick as bricks, delivered to your doorstep once a year. Yellow pages for businesses, white pages for everyone else. If you needed a plumber or a pizza place, or wanted to look up someone's number, you'd flip through those thin, almost translucent pages, running your finger down columns of names in tiny print. Everyone was in there. Every family, every home, listed for anyone to find. There was no such thing as unlisted unless you paid extra, and even then, people knew how to find you. Answering machines changed something fundamental. Suddenly, you could be gone, but still receive messages, voices captured on magnetic tape, waiting for you when you returned. You'd come home and see the little red light blinking, and you'd press play, and the tape would rewind with that mechanical whir. And then the voices would spill out. "Hey, it's me, just calling to see what you're up to tonight. Give me a call back." Hearing someone's voice in your empty house felt like a kind of magic, like they'd left a piece of themselves behind. But it also meant people expected you to call them back. There was an accountability to it, a record of who had tried to reach you. Before answering machines, a missed call simply vanished into the air. No one knew if you'd been home and ignored the ringing, or if you'd been gone, or if the phone had rung at all. It was easier, in a way. Simpler. People waited for phone calls the way we no longer wait for anything. You'd stay home on a Friday night because someone said they might call, and you didn't want to miss it. You'd sit near the phone, doing other things but always listening, always aware of the silence where a ring might suddenly appear. And when it finally did ring, your heart would jump, and you'd answer on the second ring, not the first, because you didn't want to seem too eager. There was something sacred about those moments of connection. Because they were harder to achieve, they meant more. You couldn't scroll through a contact list and tap a name. You had to remember 7 numbers, 10 if it was long distance, and dial them carefully, each digit a small commitment. And when the person answered, when you heard their voice, it felt earned. Being unreachable wasn't a problem to solve. It was just the natural state of existence. You drove across the country with a road map folded in your lap, and if your car broke down, you walked until you found a gas station or flagged down a passing driver. You went hiking in the mountains and understood that no one could contact you until you came back down. You spent entire days, entire weeks, beyond the reach of anyone who might want to find you, and this wasn't frightening. It was simply how life was. There's something we lost in gaining the ability to reach anyone, anywhere, at any time. We lost the spaces in between, the quiet moments when you were alone with your thoughts, truly alone, because no notification could pierce the silence. We lost the anticipation of coming home to see if anyone had called. We lost the art of patience, of waiting, of trusting that things would unfold in their own time without our constant intervention. But there was a weight to it too, a heaviness that's hard to explain to someone who's never known it. Making plans was a commitment carved in stone. If you didn't show up, there was no easy explanation, no quick apology sent across invisible wires. You simply weren't there, and someone was left wondering, maybe worrying. Long-distance relationships were sustained by letters and expensive phone calls on Sunday evenings, voices compressed and crackling across thousands of miles of copper wire. Parents sent their children off to college and waited by the phone on designated nights, hoping to hear that everything was okay. When something important happened, you couldn't share it instantly. You carried it with you, held it inside until you got home, until you could pick up the phone and call someone, or wait until you saw them in person. News traveled slowly. Rumors took days to spread instead of seconds. The world felt bigger because information moved at the speed of human contact, not the speed of light. There were entire conversations that happened only because someone was home when the phone rang. Random connections, unexpected friendships, relationships that bloomed from the simple fact of availability. You answered the phone not knowing who it would be, and sometimes it was exactly the person you needed to talk to at exactly the right moment. And that felt like the universe conspiring in your favor. Directories hung from payphones on metal chains, their pages wrinkled and torn, numbers scrawled in margins by strangers. You'd flip through them looking for a taxi company or the number for information, 4-1-1, where an operator would help you find what you needed. There was always someone to help, a human voice in the system, connecting you to other human voices. The phone was a piece of furniture, a fixture in the home. It had weight and presence. You didn't carry it with you from room to room, slipping it into your pocket like an afterthought. It existed in one place, and you went to it. You stood in the kitchen, twisting the cord around your finger, or you sat on the floor in the hallway, your back against the wall, and you stayed there for as long as the conversation lasted. The phone didn't follow you. You followed it. And when you were somewhere else, somewhere without a phone, you were simply gone. Unreachable, untrackable, free in a way that no longer exists. You could walk through your day knowing that no one could interrupt it. No one could demand your immediate attention. No one could make you feel guilty for not responding within minutes. You existed in your own time, on your own terms. There's no going back, of course. The world has changed, and mostly for the better. It's easier now to stay in touch, to coordinate, to know that help is always just a call away. But on quiet nights, some of us remember what it felt like to leave the house and vanish, to trust that we'd find our way, to believe that the people we loved would wait for us, that they'd be there when we returned, that the connection between us didn't require constant maintenance. We remember the sound of a phone ringing in an empty house, the way it would echo through rooms where no one was home to answer. We remember the peculiar silence after hanging up, the sense that something had ended, a conversation released back into the air. We remember being 17 and staying up too late on the phone, speaking in whispers, afraid to wake the house but unable to say goodbye. And sometimes, in the middle of our hyper-connected lives, we miss it. The slowness, the space, the quiet faith that everything would be okay, even if we couldn't reach out and touch it instantly. We miss being unreachable, even if we'd never admit it out loud. We miss the world as it was before everyone could find us, before we carried the whole world in our pockets, before we forgot what it meant to truly disappear. That world is gone now, but it still exists somewhere in memory, preserved like a photograph in a drawer. A time when phones stayed home and people wandered freely, when plans were promises and patience was ordinary, when the thread connecting us was invisible but somehow stronger because we couldn't see it, couldn't hold it, couldn't measure it in bars of signal strength. We just trusted it was there, and it was.